Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, February 25th. We're on the European account. Let's see, we have a watch and learn, and we'll re-roll this one. Play 12 minions that cost 5 or more. Start with the watch and learn and see if this works for us. We've got a lot of news. We're still behind from last week, so we'll cover a lot of this as we're doing this watch and learn, and I think this guy's probably gonna lose anyway, so we'll have to watch his next game and hope he wins then. So we'll start with this one. Techropter has an article, YouTube creator misled public over Anthem video takedown. This is the YouTuber GGG Man Lives, or Triple G Man Lives. Basically, he was claiming that the EA had blacklisted him and forced him to take down a video to get attention. In the longer reveal, it turned out what EA had done is not blacklisted him in any way, or at least they're saying they're not blacklisting him, but they asked him to take a specific branding off, because there's two EA programs. There's the Game Changers program that G-Man is a member of, where you get early access to the game because you have some level of influence, and I don't even know how he got into that, quite frankly. And in the Game Changers program, they want you to disclose using the logo Game Changers program that you got the game for free, and just the disclosures that the FTC requires of anybody who gets anything from free. It's an ad, it's a sponsorship, you're being paid in the form of a free game code to do this. It's not a completely 100% unbiased review. So they wanted him to take off the Game Changers program logo, and they wanted him to put on a logo to say that the video actually is sponsored content, because they had actually, I think, paid him to make the video. And apparently Triple G Man is in Australia, and he's not following the laws in Australia for disclosure either. So he took down the video, took off the Game Changers program, claimed all these things that don't seem to be true, and then put the video back up without any disclosures. There's a quote here: for its paid sponsorships, the website directly notes that EA commissions specific campaign assets, cinematics, and even tutorial videos that EA directly approves, which must always display sponsored by EA watermark, including both the audible and written description. So they wanted him to have the sponsored by EA watermark, not the Game Changers watermark, and instead of doing that, he made this whole claim. I know everybody hates EA, and it is possible that somebody in EA did tell him he was blacklisted for writing a negative review, or left him with that impression, even if they didn't say it directly, and maybe EA even did blacklist him. But this is not a coming to the public with clean hands idea. It's just not an honest way to depict this. If you're a content creator and you have sponsored content, and you believe you were forced to take it down and told to not put if you really had a conversation where somebody said take it down now, or we'll sue you or something, I don't know what the threat would be, I would I would definitely want to get my story straight before I said anything. And see, that's really the only way this makes him look like he's in a good light, is if it was a case of, oh no, actually EA did say take it down or we'll sue you, and now the EA is completely lying. If it's not that case, and it doesn't seem like it is, if EA really just said to take it down, take off the watermark and put it back up, then you've got a case of a streamer who at best is pissed off because he had to do more processing, more rendering on his video, or is at worst you have a case of a streamer who is literally just lying for drama. And so this would be the second case today, frankly, of what seems to be fairly certain instances of people on YouTube lying to cause drama. Well, Odd Rogue might work for us. Looking for decks that have 5 or more, and I'm trying to see if it's easier just to build a deck with 5 or more, or what. We have an Overload, and we have a Murloc deck. Then we have this Custom Druid. What is in this? It's just nothing. And then we have a Custom Priest, which has nothing in it. Yeah. I think Odd Rogue is the best we're gonna get, unless we make a deck. Okay. So Odd Rogue needs to change its name while we're here. Let's do that right now. And at the end of the day, people need to learn that you can't lie to the internet. Those internet sleuths will be on top of anything that has the slightest stink of being incomplete or dishonest. There's been several instances in the broader, just mainstream news of either dishonest news reporting or dishonest reporting, dishonest actions of people getting caught for being dishonest. Dishonesty doesn't work in 2019. It probably hasn't worked for about a decade. So people need to learn silence or 100% complete honesty. Those are your two options. Let's see. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Two Clusters Cane, which looks like a really old game, but it says it came out in 2019, so I'm gonna assume that this is just a very low effort MS Paint game. Yeah, it is. It's early access, free to play, brand new, looks like something that you'd expect from the mid 80s on PC. Yep, just terrible. Terrible, terrible games coming out these days. We're gonna have to go through quite a few terrible games, I'm sure. Let's see. Can I show this one off? I think we can. Yeah, I think we're safe somewhat. This game is tagged for nudity and sexual content, so I want to double check before I show it. 1, 2, here we go. There. Next we have a game on Steam called Night City 2177. And what I can tell you about this game immediately is this looks like the same asset flip from a game that came out about 6 months ago, and in that instance it was a bunch of anime girls on a stripper poles walking around. Seems like they've upped their game now and they've bought some 3D assets of more realistic girls, although these arms don't look very well textured or animated, and they've seem to have polished the idea a little bit better on the walls over here and the characters, and there's even some indication of maybe going outside, but yeah, there's really no reason to buy this. This is a low effort troll game for $3.19. Any promise of nudity in there is going to lead to major disappointment. I'll watch this full trailer just for science. You know, science. Just to see what the poses and the actions are. It's a little bit better on the animations, the actual movements. That there's a robot that strips or dancers. I'm not sure if any of them actually strip. They probably don't. They probably stay in the same level of clothing and just move around. Yeah, the outside section is probably the loading screen when you start the program. I bet you don't do anything outside. Yeah. So yeah, I just watched the entire video on it, and it was lacking in any quality or any kind of any kind of unique dance numbers. See, that's where, if you were gonna make a virtual strip club, which I guess is kind of what this idea is, you're going to have to probably 3D scan in a choreographed stripper dance of some sort. You might as well just get live footage in rotoscope, is what it's called. Just animate directly over the live footage. Because unless they're going a full length between like 3 to 5 to maybe even 10 or 12 minute dance, your content is going to just be low in the amount. Let's see, can I draw 2 demons from my deck? That would be interesting. And even if you were to do that, and in like the Deus Ex games, there were something like that, I believe, and in the kind of infamous BMX XXX game, they had actual videos of actual strippers just as cutscenes, unlockable cutscenes in the game.
Stop copying me!
I don't know if it's really worth it to go down that route. You're not gonna catch too many people's attention. It's one of those cases where you always have to think, do these people not know that Pornhub exists? Do they not know that you could easily just get way more content for free on Pornhub?
Time's up. Let's do this.
Hey, lights out.
Let's see.
Here
Let's
we
go ahead
go.
and kill that one. And kill that one. Next we have a game on Steam called Toy Tank. Just one word squished together. Looks pretty bad. Looks like it's a VR game where you're playing with a toy on the table for $1.79 discounted. That is way too cheap for VRs. This may be the end of VR, which is interesting because the HoloLens like HoloLens as a video game accessory is also dead, but HoloLens 2.0 was just showed off by Microsoft, but they don't want to use it for video games. That was a determination pretty quickly, is that they were taking the general idea of augmented reality and using Kinect technology, and they were putting it into a different field completely. They didn't want to do video games for one reason or the other. I'm gonna lose, so just see if we can go out in style. Play as many cards as possible.
That was a mistake.
I don't see how it was a mistake. I was gonna die either way. Next we have a game on Steam called Death Cave, and while I like this anime title, it's kind of nice. The actual game you see here is garbage. Looks like it's a platformer or something, just something that would be a first year student project, somebody without any ability to animate. It's discounted, but $5.39. It's English and Japanese, and this is about the price you expect for even garbage in Japan. Everything is super expensive in Japan if they can get away with it. So that's an indicator. We're starting to see more instances of bad Japanese games come to Steam from indie developers and small-time developers. Death Cave is the first game from this developer. And they still want a high price, which I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea how any of this really evens out in the long run. In general, the hope is that the cream rises to the crop and there's more opportunity, but I'd like to see an increase in realistic a realistic perception of where the game industry is, and less people thinking they can make money making garbage. And yeah, the game looks like a first year video game project. Does not look good.
I fight.
And I don't know what the value of that is. This is getting on a side conversation, certainly, but I don't know what the value there is to have somebody to tell an artist, look, you're young, you're new, what you're making is not good enough to be sold. A lot of people say you shouldn't coddle people, and you shouldn't give participation awards and such as a major consideration and thought. But then it feels like it's probably very unique for very different people. I think some people can be motivated with getting a B instead of an A. I think some people can be completely crushed by getting a B instead of an A. And if you're giving an F, that's where the nuance in the art, I guess, comes down to being a teacher or a critic in general, is that I suppose if my goal was not to give consumer advice, but to actually make video game developers better, and I was dealing with students and not people who claim to be professionals, I might be a little bit nicer in my criticism of certain games developed by certain people if I saw that they tried really hard. On the other hand, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably want to be totally honest and say, look, this is not good enough for the level that you're at. and you need to get better or you need to drop out. It's probably better to fail early and fail often than it is to string people along, even when they're in education, and say, oh, you might get better in 4 years or 10 years or 5 years. It's like, no, you've got to be good by the time you are at your first job, releasing your first product. You can't get extra time. You can't do extra credit. Not in the real world. Now, this next story is not directly connected to this, but GameIndustry.biz has an article, "The Rising Development Costs Forced Square Enix to Find Its Soul," opinion piece. When Final Fantasy was no longer enough, the venerable publisher dug deeper. So, what this is proposing as an opinion piece, and I'm not sure I agree with this. They're saying back in May of 2013, just prior to the former president, just prior to the current president taking over, Square Enix was making big budget titles like Tomb Raider, Hitman Absolution, and Sleeping Dogs. And at this point, Tomb Raider is a failure. Hitman is no longer owned in any way by Square Enix, and Sleeping Dogs 3 isn't likely to come out anytime soon, if ever at all. Let's see. That would have been the Tomb Raider reboot they're talking about. Now what they're saying is that they moved away from AAA games to invest more into AA games. So they're saying they started funding some other games like Goetia, Goetia, never heard of it, and Tokyo Dark, and many more. Either none of those games have come out, or they weren't big enough to even be memorable. They funded the release of Life is Strange because they had because they could make some money off of it pretty cheaply, but saying that because they made a financial decision to fund something I think they were already invested in so that they didn't lose their investment is hardly a claim that Square Enix found its soul in funding Don't Nod and Life is Strange. If that was the case, by this point there would be several other games that were episodic and like Life is Strange in development now, and there isn't. They're talking about in 2015 they announced Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is kind of their last hope as far as Final Fantasy games. I imagine there's a 16 in a pre-production stage. But this opinion piece is then saying, well, Octopath Traveler was a big success, and like, Octopath Traveler is a big success because Nintendo was in part behind it, or made it a success. And they're trying to say Nier Automata was a big success. Nier Automata was a big success because Platinum was behind it, or the developers, the developer was behind it. What I don't see here is the idea that there will be 2 more Nier games, or that even there is another Nier game already in development. For the amount of success of Nier Automata, now would be the time to say, yes, there is another game in development. They're trying to say here, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII on the PSP was there. So where this opinion piece really loses me, and I'm just skipping through it because it's an opinion piece and I really shouldn't be looking at it all, it's just wasting my time. They mentioned Bravely Default too. Is if Square Enix's new soul is partnering with other people and succeeding off of other people's creations because everything they do turns to dust, that's not much of a soul to celebrate, really. That's the point where you need to take a long, hard look at yourself and say, maybe we should stop making the kind of games we make and either get out of the video game industry completely. They're mentioning Scarlet Grace. So clearly this is a Gamma Sutra article by someone who just loves JRPG games and loves the standalone JRPG games and hasn't really loved the Final Fantasy JRPG series. So yeah, there's a quote here: between Nier Automata, Octopath Traveler, and Scarlet Grace, it has released some of its most interesting game in the last 10 years. Yeah, I just cannot agree with this opinion. The idea that
This guy's tough.
what to me looks like a pretty close to failing company like Square Enix. They probably have money. They'll probably last another 10 years. And as long as they get a couple of tentpole successes, they'll probably still be in the industry. But the idea that they somehow found their soul through small indie JRPGs that they really didn't have a hand in is kind of ridiculous. And from what I've heard, Square Enix likes to interfere and micromanage things. So unless the argument is they found their soul and they stopped micromanaging the development of games internally in their own company, that's the only turnaround that would be positive in my mind, is if they said to the Japanese people in their Japanese offices, we're gonna not micromanage so much, and we're gonna let you just be creative and artistic. That'd be interesting. I'm not sure that fixes anything, because the jury is still out in my mind totally whether Final Fantasy 15 failed because they didn't micromanage enough, or because they micromanaged too much, or did it have nothing really to do with the management of Square Enix whatsoever? Was it just the director of the Final Fantasy game? Was he just bouncing off the walls, making changes like crazy? That's kind of what I've heard, is that the director was the problem. So Final Fantasy 16, if it ever gets made, might be a lot better, and it may have nothing to do with any changes or lack of micromanagement from Square Enix. It may just be that the director's different. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Bot War that looks terrible. Looks like a terrible effort to make something like a first-person shooter. They want $6.99 for this. That's terrible. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Little Mouse's Encyclopedia. This is a kids game, and I'm always looking for kids games, and this looks like it might actually even be educational. So as long as this is in English, I'm going to put this on the fall list. $4.24 discount. It's not terrible. It is in English. 160 species of plants and animals, 4 different habitats. That seems like that's actually educational. So I'll put this on the fall list and I'll see what the reviews are. The problem with any game like this is that it could just be all untrue garbage. The game might be lying. And it may actually be not appropriate for kids. Well, I guess that's not Explosive Trap. I thought it would have been. GameIndustry.biz has an article. Microsoft adds eye tracking and doubles its field of view for HoloLens 2 with a launch later this year for $3,500. Unreal Engine support is on the way. So yeah, I saw some of this announcement. It wasn't that long. The eye tracking is like an iris scanner also, so it automatically logs you into your computer. It has like a super powerful chip inside of it, but it's not for video games. They show demos where it's for people working on fixing motorcycles and surgeons. It's for a augmented reality in instances where you're a professional and money is no object. The only announcement I saw that was even slightly looked like it might be video games is it seems like Hasbro's corporate people are using it for teleconferencing, and they were showing off this creepy demo where they had made a program that makes a 3D avatar for teleconferencing in 3D spatial environments off of a 2D image, and the 3D avatar looked like garbage. I think HoloLens 2 is not really ready for prime time, particularly at that price tag. It looks like, to me, a ridiculous IT budget waster. Like, some IT departments love to do this. They'll say, let's buy one of these items and see if we'll use it in our 1,000 different offices. And they have no intention of ever implementing it in the workflow or using it. They just wanted a gadget to play with and to waste their budget so their budget stays high. I don't see a lot that HoloLens 2, which is actually HoloLens 3 because a 2 version was canceled in production. I don't see it really doing anything much more than what you would expect you could do with a projector and a camera in a lot of instances. A lot of it's just unnecessary extra stuff. One day it'll work and be worth it. Speaking of announcements, I'm not sure I have an article here about this, but I talked about how Apple said they were working on making iOS apps work on Mac products like MacBooks and MacBook Airs and all of those. Apparently, the way they're going to try and do that is they're going to force everybody to go to ARM processors, the reduced instruction set ARM processors, which means that we've got the fuzzy graphics again. Shaman cards, I guess, is what we're going to play from now on. Let's see, can I even find which one is Shaman? Yeah, there it is. So what that means is they're basically rewriting all of the operating system to support a whole different type of processors, not a regular Intel i86 or 586, 786 processor. Whatever we're up to, we might be up to 9, 10, 11, 86 generation processors at this point because the numbers change a little frequently. So it means all the software would have to be reprogrammed, and almost certainly when you compare apples to apples, it means that the MacBooks and the Apple products are not going to be as powerful as they used to be. And any software that is not highly optimized to work and look and feel like it's moving as fast as it used to will feel considerably slower, and a lot of things will not transfer over. Now, how much is that really going to affect people? It depends. If you're dual booting with Parallels into a MacBook, that's almost certainly never going to work again. So that's gone. There's no way to get around that, pretty much. But if you're just using a MacBook and you're only using the Apple products on MacBook, they'll probably optimize all of those so they feel as fast as they used to be. To get back to the Microsoft HoloLens, also Microsoft is, according to Reddit, they took a military contract and their employees are not happy about that, developing HoloLens for military uses, which, quite frankly, that is the #1 place where I think HoloLens would work and would work best is in military applications where you've got something that could detect small bits of movement, overlay maps of unfamiliar territory, bring up interfaces to control drones, display video game like counters of how much ammo you've shot, things like that. And the military does not mind one bit spending $3,500 on a single unit. I'm sure, since it's the taxpayers' money anyways, what do they care? Elemental. Do we have anything that's none? Let's see, 2/2 elemental. And this. And how are we gonna do this? That. That. And that. And this. And there. Next we have a game on Steam called Hookshot, which looks like a cell phone game. Seems like you are just basically playing billiards, bouncing a ball around, and wherever it lands it sticks. It's $1.19 discounted. Again, some of these really low effort cheap games used to be on sale for 70 cents. Now they want like double that. So I don't know if times are tough and people are raising their prices hoping to adjust for that, or if the market really is providing enough people willing to pay at those prices. Let's see. Next we have another low effort game on Steam called Super Orb Collector, which is just flying around with, it looks like it's direct mouse control to collect these orbs. They want, again, $1.19. This actually is from the same developer. So Super Grower, Super Orb Collector, and Hookshot probably all released at the same day. I don't recognize this publisher name, but I think I will start recognizing it pretty quickly if they're gonna flood the Steam market with garbage games and try to make them bundle to make it seem like it's a better value. There we go. It's like we have so far in an hour not even seen, I think, but maybe 1 or 2 good games. And that's a bad ratio certainly, but it is kind of normal. So next we have a game on Steam called Swarm Simulator Evolution. This one's a little iffy. I think I need to give this one a chance, see if some people review it and actually like it. It probably isn't anything. Well, it's free to play. Single player with in-app purchases. So maybe people should try it out. It says over 1 million players. I don't understand how that is true. That seems like that is a lie. So I'd not play it for that reason unless this was on a website somewhere. But even then I'd think it would be a lie. Yeah. I think they tipped their hand when they said over 1 million players. That's unrealistic amount.
There is little time.
This.
Mushroom power! How long can this go on? How long can this go on?
And return. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Rhythm Overdrive, which looks like it's a rhythm-based shooter game. I generally don't like rhythm games, and I'm not sure how this would change playing basically Galaga. Anyways, like the original version of these kinds of games were basically following a rhythm anyways. It's just it wasn't a musical rhythm, it was a slower beat. Yeah, this looks like this would be a nightmare. $6.29 discounted. I could see people maybe liking this. 10 different enemies, 15 songs from 4 different artists, 2 difficulties, 30 levels. 30 levels is pretty low also. Alright.
There is little time.
Okay. So. Got close there. Close enough. Gamma Sutra has the same article. Microsoft unveils HoloLens 2. Promises greater mixed reality immersion. A lot of video game people were reporting on the HoloLens 2. If a HoloLens 3 comes out, now seeing that the second one really has no interest in video games, which is something they've been saying for at least a year or two, I think we probably won't even report on, and most people won't even bother to report on it. Also, I imagine you'll kind of quickly find out that it doesn't make sense to talk about it because it's not going to do anything or not succeed.
Before the storm.
So he got back up to full health, so we'll have to keep on playing. Next we have a game on Steam called Warcraft, which sounds weird. This looks like it's different colored circles fighting each other. You know, it almost feels like a Beyblade. I guess that's what it is. Unfortunately, visually, it's just not interesting looking. It's early access, discounted for $4.24. I'm very surprised to see it doesn't have some other Asian language here, because if you are making a Beyblade style of clone, I would expect you're doing it to appeal to some Asian market somewhere.
Stormy, stormy.
That this is not a product specifically designed just for Westerners, people who speak English. Of course, it always gets weird in translations anyways, because sometimes you'll release a game in other Asian countries and still end up just releasing it in English because you want to release it in so many different Asian countries that English is the one shared common language. There.
I'm out of cards.
Alright, I'm out of cards. So let's do that first. And that. And let's see. That.
Shelter. The calm before the storm. Okay, pitchy, go get him.
I didn't need to play this guy. There we go. This next game I'm pretty sure is a troll game. It's called Transshaping. Seems like it's designed just to be kind of transphobic style of game. Although I kind of hate to use that phrase without certainty, but this part of the screen right there seems like that's the case. And regardless of whether this is supposed to be a troll game or if this is supposed to be a heartfelt, genuine tale of a trans person who is telling their tale through these ugly shapes, they're still selling a game with ugly shapes for a ridiculous price. $12.99 with no discount. This might be an SJW game, like the way this is phrased. It might not be a troll, it might just be this is what an SJW thought would be a impactful thing to make a game about, and that this story needed to come out in that form, in that fashion. That is also believable. That's kind of the problem with SJWs in general, is that they're so extreme that they make themselves and everyone who slightly agrees with them look bad half the time. That's why, like, from what I hear, the phrase SJW is not made by people who are completely against everything SJWs claim to stand for. It was made by actual progressive people who were trying to actually affect progressive policies and do something that they felt was right and good, but instead get co-opted by people who just want to rant about, like, sexism in video games. Which, yeah, Leanna K is not an SJW in my opinion, although she can be opinionated in ways I don't always agree with, which just makes her a normal human. She was talking about the Mortal Kombat controversy, and I really like how she phrases it to how it's becoming sexist in the way you usually don't think of it. It's sexist to say a woman can't do something that an average random woman can't do something that an average random man can do in most instances. But it's also sexist to say that a average random woman can is so weak that they need to be assisted to do something that a average random man can do. So in the case of the Mortal Kombat, the costumes that are being shown for the new version of Mortal Kombat, there is this feeling that the female characters are getting covered up in a way to appear less sexist, but is actually more sexist because they're not covering up any of the male characters. So if it was a general blanket, we're just going to put all of the characters in Mortal Kombat, both male and female, in more conservative clothing. They're going to be more covered up. They're going to be less sexy, less skin showing. Then that would be fair. But when you're elevating women on pedestal and saying they're so precious and they're so weak and that they have to be protected. These virtual characters in Mortal Kombat that are fighters are so weak that they have to be protected and put in these in less provocative outfits. It is just another form of sexism, and really robbing characters who have been established as being aggressive in general and sexually aggressive in their dress. Undoing that is robbing the characters of their established backstory and characterization. And as for the Mortal Kombat series, Mortal Kombat 1 had Sonya Blade. Sonya Blade's original art was based on a comic book of a character that was in a high leotard and her belly was showing. For the time that Mortal Kombat 1 came out, that was sexually provocative. It wasn't a big talked about issue because people were too busy talking about how violent the game was. But the games really have been that way. When you get to Mortal Kombat 2, the original art and suits of the characters of Mortal Kombat 2 are bikini clad, provocative, and particularly with Mortal Kombat as a series, that is a series that has to up its game. Like, it is actually surprising that it is not an adults only game at this point, because that's all the Mortal Kombat series has ever been. It's a fighting game that sells itself on extremes, on being extremely violent, extremely bloody, and extremely provocative was the third lower extreme there. Extremely crass with like babalities and friendships and silly too. So with every new generation, those the fighters should have been in even skimpier clothes in the same way that the games have gotten extremely more violent in their depictions. Like the whole X-ray broken bones thing, something like that as far as skimpiness should be for Mortal Kombat. Does that mean what I'm saying now as an opinion? Does that mean I believe every single female character in every single game should be in skimpy clothing? No, not at all. It's just when you've established a character one way, you really can't go back. Even the Tomb Raider reboot, it really wasn't as big of a deal as it is in this Mortal Kombat. The way it seems the costumes are going in Mortal Kombat. Also in a fighting game, you're going to have a bunch of costumes anyways. So one hopes not all of them are extremely conservative. But this is really impactful because this is the same thing, the same kind of pressure that journalists have been giving to the developer of DOA, where DOA is a game that is known for wanting to depict most of the female characters in skimpy clothing, and now begrudgingly has put them in less skimpy clothing by default. So changing their artistic views. The thing I would say that's worse about the the Tomb Raider reboot is not that you lost the clothing, it's that you lost the coolness of the character. Like, that reboot made her seem very weak and just not that cool dual gun shooting adventurer that we had come to know as Lara Croft. And I'm not sure even by the third game does she even feel like the Lara Croft of old by that point. Also, I would say that the gameplay is pretty significantly changed in the Tomb Raider reboot. Like, Moving on though, I'm getting on a bit of a rant. I would say a lot of the Nintendo games in particular, I would not want to see Princess Peach or Princess Daisy or Rosalind or Zelda. I really want to see any of them in extremely skimpier clothing in officially made games from Nintendo, because those games, they're established as games for little kids to get their first taste of those types of games. And yeah, there's fan art out there if you want to see Princess Peach in bikinis, and that's really where it should just stay. That's in part, I guess, why a character like Bowsette could not really ever enter the Nintendo universe. Although there's ways you could do it, you would just have to I think it would probably be best if you made a new character in the Super Mario universe that kind of is a female Bowser, but it isn't called Bowsette and isn't scantily clad in any way. You go with maybe a goth-ish teen with black hair and like black eyeshadow. Maybe you could put a Bowser spike on your neck, but that's kind of it. You wouldn't want to go full Bowser shell, as she's been depicted by default.
Stormy, stormy.
Yeah. What else? Let's play this. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Dodge This. This is another low effort game where you're getting things just thrown at you and you're trying to dodge them all. It doesn't even look like much of a game. Let's see if we can show a little bit of this. You seem to direct you in a way, and when you click you bounce up in the air. Even if you're in the air, you seem to still bounce. And you're just trying to dodge random garbage. This game is 59 cents discounted. At least it's the right price for a garbage game. Which elemental do we have?
How long can this go on? How long can this go on?
Let's see, what do we want to do? I could do this one damage here. And in the turn. The Mortal Kombat story 2 is also one of those stories where you can't really say anything after a certain point. Like, we'll have to see what the next Mortal Kombat game is, and I'm not sure that the Mortal Kombat series as a fighting game series matters. After Mortal Kombat 2, if I was to do a series and play all the Mortal Kombat games, say somebody gifted me like all of them on Steam that are available on Steam, I'm not even sure which ones are, if any, I'd probably just do a spotlight of 1 and 2, and then that would be about it, because the story modes, I might go through the story mode if it's on easy on some of the later series, but there was no story mode in 1 or 2, so I doubt 3 either. And I'm not sure anything between Mortal Kombat 3 and the most recent one matters in any way. At least when you play the, if you were to play the Injustice games, there's a little bit more focus on story there. But I still don't think, I'm certain that Injustice is worth playing either. They're kind of at the bottom of the list of fighting games, quite frankly. Moving on, we have a article. Someone is remaking Chex Quest in HD. I'll show a web peek here of whatever Chex Quest is. It sounds to me like it's one of those serial video games. Yeah, it is. It was a game from that General Mills made at some point from the Chex cereal. Chex Quest was a Doom clone which was given away freely in boxes as a serial part of an advertising campaign in the late 90s. So now, let's see. We've got this Chex Quest trailer. I'll skip through and see what this is. I'm seeing some really ugly animated yellow people in like a cutscene. It's like a military briefing. And some of the people in the audience are aliens and have holes in their stomachs, I guess, to imply that they are the Chex cereal.
The calm before the storm.
Let's see. I guess maybe they're armored around Chex cereal. Like they have armor on their bodies. Okay. I'm probably about to lose here, so we'll just ignore this. This is what Chex Quest looks like. I've never seen this before. As a Doom clone, it is definitely a generation ahead in 3D graphics than the Star Wars games I'm playing. Jedi Knight, for instance, Jedi Knight 1, or 2, however, Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. So yeah, you're shooting them with kind of a handheld zapper, things that look like toy guns, and things that definitely don't look like real world guns, and you're shooting aliens, which is interesting. I don't know why anybody would remake Chex Quest in HD. It seems ridiculous. It's like a fan project. Really, that should be something that just revolves around a idea of preserve it, know that it existed at one time, but never bring it up again and never play it again. Well, I'm going to end this recording here because it's not about another hour, and then I'm going to take a small break and I'll be back in like 5 minutes. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, this is a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.